Today we wrap up our Generation 6 buying guides and we take a look at the SEGA Dreamcast. We're going to look at the games, the console, and ultimately answer, should you look into collecting the SEGA Dreamcast in 2021? What are we drinking today?
Today we're drinking 90 Days Dry Aged Stout by Evil Twin. This is a milk stout brewed with dry aged malt.
All right, you know the drill. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell icon so you never miss one of our bi-weekly uploads. And sit back, relax, pour yourself a beer if you care to, and let's take a look at the SEGA Dreamcast and if you should purchase one in 2021.
You want to know about beer, wrestling games, or gaming? You've got to check out Gaming Off the Grid.
Oddly enough, we're wrapping up these buying guides on Generation 6 with the first console that was released in the generation, being the SEGA Dreamcast. Man, huge nostalgia for this console. This is the first console I bought with my own money.
Damn.
And who can forget the $99.99 advertising campaign?
What a badass campaign. Like, I don't even remember that being campaigned, but it's ingrained in my brain. And what a genius marketing tool. $99.99.
Which,
that's
I mean,
awesome.
You would have been like 5 when this came out, which is
so
crazy.
That's why. But
so, yeah, I would have been in middle school, and I remember distinctly wanting one really bad. And it came out at $199.99, which was a pretty affordable console at the time. And I was like, man, I can get that. Now, the sad story about this is I did trade in a lot of shit to get the Dreamcast.
Yeah, a lot of like cartridge-based.
But I didn't get it right at launch. I actually got a refurbished unit from GameStop, so it wasn't all that expensive. And I remember it would have been probably a couple years after it was out, because one of the games I got with it was NFL 2K2. Nice. But anyway, lowest selling console of the generation.
By a lot.
Didn't even hit 10 million units sold.
Which is crazy. And it's the introduction of the 6th generation, which you already brought up, and it just did terrible. Like, growing up, I knew one person that had one, and I didn't even know it existed, and I remember going over to his house, and I was like, what is this?
What
like,
is this box?
I thought it was like a homemade thing his dad made him. Like, I didn't even know it was a console. Like, it's so weird, but now I love the Dreamcast.
Yeah, the Dreamcast is amazing, and I think a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't have any good games, and I think it's just maybe kind of to your point, they didn't get to play it a ton.
Yeah.
You know, I feel the same way kind of towards the Sega Saturn, just because, I would have been about your same age probably when that came out, as you were when this came out, and I didn't know. I knew one person that had one, and they ended up getting a PS1 so fast it was like, oh, the Saturn,
it's
whatever. You know, the console did not have a DVD player, which kind of became the norm. The GameCube obviously didn't have a DVD player, but the PS2 and Xbox did. But one thing this console did have right from the jump that was really unique was the online connectivity. Now, there were some other consoles that could do some online stuff, but this was really the first home console that I can really remember that was like, people were playing online, and that was a thing.
And it was, the modem was built into it, so it was just made to be played online. What's kind of sad though about the Dreamcast is it's Sega's last home console, which is crazy, man, because it's 22 years later.
Yeah, it is weird. It lost so much traction. Again, it was the first console I ever bought with my own money. I distinctly remember the sports games, man, those 2K sports games. Now, when you go back to play old sports games,
sometimes they don't
live on typically, but holy shit, man, the NFL 2K, there was an NCAA football one, the NBA 2K games revolutionized the basketball games, and it's still kind of the go-to basketball game for people, you know, the newest ones. But the 2K franchise mopped the floor with NBA Live from EA Sports. A lot of people think NFL 2K5 is the best. That wasn't on the Dreamcast, but the best version of that game that ever came out, or football game for that matter. I don't agree with that, but it is an awesome game.
It's a great game, yeah.
But one of the sports games that actually lives on great today is the tennis game. Virtua Tennis. And I remember
tennis.
Yeah, and I remember like, man, I don't even really care about tennis, and thinking this is amazing.
Dude, it looks amazing. So we'll talk about games later, so we'll dive deeper into that. But that tennis game is phenomenal.
It's epic, and it plays perfect. So I remember there was a lot of good games that I wanted. I also remember that this console had perfect arcade ports.
Oh, it was insane.
It was kind of running, what was it, the Naomi Sega hardware from the arcades was able to be just replicated perfectly on this console, which was really awesome. So if you played a game in the arcade and then you played it at home, you were getting the same freaking image on your TV screen, which was huge. I remember feeling like there was so much endless potential with the online piece. It was kind of that console that almost mimicked a computer. It was kind of like a PC gaming engine crammed into a console box.
Which is so cool. And what's really cool about the Dreamcast is it can play burned discs, but not all variants. So any console before, I think, October 2000 can play burn discs, and then like the later models,
You have to mod them to be able to do
They
it.
got rid of that feature, which is so cool. I'm gonna be honest and say that we do have a couple burn games because some of the games are way too pricey, but it's so cool that it could do that.
Yeah, and it was a thing. A lot of people knew about it. I had a friend whose brother had a CD binder just full of Dreamcast burns. And so back in the day when I would go over to his house, we would play. We had access to every freaking game.
So
they would
cool.
go rent them, bring them home, burn them.
Burn 'em.
We'd play it. It's always been a little goofy sometimes to get a burn game to play, but just monkey with it. Sometimes you open the disc tray, close it, and it'll get going. So it was pretty cool. And then the output on this, I remember my buddy had the VGA cables, which not a lot of people had. So this came with packed in AV cables, your yellow, red, and white. You could also get the RF switch on this, which you could for a lot of consoles in the generation, because I know like my 13-inch TV in my room, there was no AV ports. But there was a VGA cable, which could support, like, I think it was 480p, I'm pretty sure, and it looked fantastic. And when we'd play over at my buddy's house, we would hook it up to his PC monitor, and it looked
beautiful.
So freaking good.
You were like, how can graphics get any better?
So yeah, those are some of my memories of it growing up with it. Love the console. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it other than he is a noisy, noisy
dude.
Boy.
The Dreamcast is so loud. And the controller is so big. Let's talk about the controllers. So, what's cool is the controller is such a cool, unique design, but it's so big. And why does the cord come out of the bottom?
It's unique. Now, it does have that little notch in the back, so you can get the cord kind of coming out of the top, but it was a weird design. I think they initially did it because you've got your memory card and rumble pack slot up on the top, but they still could have worked around that because the Xbox did as well. But yeah, the controller was very, very unique at the time, but the form factor.
Yeah, it kind of, your fingers curl around it, dude. It's kind of sweet. And I love, like, going with the controller, the memory cards, man.
Yeah.
Those would be so cool. You plug them in, and then, like, the little screen.
Yep, and there were some mini games, and you could hook them together and transfer files, and that screen on the memory card, it was so fun back in the day. This seems so stupid, but it was so fun to put in when you got a new game and see what graphic you were going to get on the screen of the VMU.
It's still fun in 2021
I still think it's the best memory card ever made.
Oh,
like, it was so cool. It's like a little Game Boy.
It's such a cool thing for a memory card.
Yeah.
And it might not have had the best storage compared to other memory cards, but it had the display, and that's all I cared about.
And then, it had that other slot. You could either run 2 memory cards, or you could put a rumble pack in, which a lot of those that I had ever seen were mostly third party, which is weird on the accessory side, is we could make a whole episode on all the different accessories.
Oh, there's so
for
many.
the Dreamcast. Some of the ones that were like staples was a light gun,
which is awesome.
But in the US, Sega never released the official light gun. I think the official light gun for the Dreamcast in the US was actually made by Mad Catz.
And I think isn't that the one we have?
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty good light gun. But I think the story kind of goes, there were some school tragedies, shooting type of stuff, and Sega was scared to kind of put that out. But then they still put out light gun games. And then somebody had to fill the void of who was going to put the guns out. So folks in the PAL territories in Japan and whatnot, Europe, blah, 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 they actually got an officially licensed Sega light gun. We didn't get one in the US.
Oh, which we love our light gun games, so it's kind of sad for us that we don't have that. But the Mad Catz works great, and we've used it so many times.
Yeah, and then the keyboard was a big deal. The game that jumps out to me is Typing of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
So House of the Dead, it's kind of the same, but you have to type, and that was a really cool game. I never owned it, but I had a buddy who had it, and it was a lot of fun. The mouse, get a mouse for it.
Yeah,
there was a fishing reel for it.
Going back to that PC thing, it was like mimicking a PC. Yeah, that fishing reel was so weird, but so cool. There's so many crazy and weird third-party accessories too for the Dreamcast. There's
fight sticks,
so many cool things. But it would just go on forever.
What you really need in 2021, if you're looking to get into collect, which is what we try doing in these episodes, is you need a controller. You need a VMU. If you want to play Typing of the Dead, you're going to need a keyboard. But for the most part, the controller of the VMU is really all you need to go out and get to get started on this thing. If you're into arcade fight sticks, there's tons of those. There's tons of accessories. But the licensed Sega stuff is kind of minimal. It's a lot of third-party stuff, steering wheels, blah, blah, blah. We could go on and on. Now, the console variants.
Yes, the console.
One of our holy grail items that I want to get is the black Sega Sports.
Oh, dude, it's so sexy.
So awesome. I remember seeing the bundle after I'd got mine, like, shit, man, I wish I could get that. I've never owned one. I will someday. But the traditional, the white or off-white, it's kind of tough to find one that isn't like yellowed. Luckily, we have 2 that are in really, really good shape. Ironically enough, I was showing Robert before we filmed. I got this at Gamers for $24.95 used. This
That's
is not my original one.
crazy.
And I can't remember what year I got that in, but pretty wild that that's how cheap they were at one point.
Now they're not that cheap.
Yeah. And then, there are some other console variants, especially in other territories. That were like limited. I know there's like a Hello Kitty one, I believe. I think.
Of course there is.
Some various things like that, but at least in the U.S., the white and then the Sega Sports Black are the main ones that you're going to find out in the wild that you won't have to overpay for. Still fairly expensive, but that's kind of the ones that most people know about.
I think the white is just the way to go, even though the black one is so sexy, but it's hard to find and it's way more expensive.
I do wish that black, it has that Sega Sports logo. I wish it just was black with this awesome logo.
Yeah,
and
instead of just...
The logo in the PAL territories is actually blue. So the orange one...
That's really cool.
Yeah, the orange one is kind of exclusive, I believe, to the US, so it's pretty neat. All right, it's time to talk about the games. You got the console, you either got the white version, you got the black Sega Sports version, but you're going to need some games. Now, these games are great games. We'll dive into if the whole package is worth it. We don't focus on price in this section of the episode, but these are just badass games on the Sega Dreamcast. One of my favorite games of all time on the system is Jet Grind Radio.
This game is so freaking badass. When I play it, I feel like an angsty teenage skateboarding or skate rolling punk,
Yeah, and the weird part is I've watched people who don't maybe play the games they always talk about. For people like, I don't really like skating games. This isn't Tony Hawk.
No, it's way different.
It's kind of the element of skating, but you're going and you're tagging territories of gangs, trying to take over a town, trying to avoid a corrupt police department. There's a story. It's more of an adventure game than a skate game.
It's so much fun. Then you got the classic Dreamcast game, Shenmue. I'm not a big fan of the Shenmue series. They're a little bit longer games, but it's a staple.
It's a tough one to go back to. The reason I wanted to put it on the list is it was a revolutionary game. That really open world, a living, breathing environment that felt like was going on whether you were playing or you were in that area of the game or not. These people just existed. The city was alive. And it was just so unique at the time. I really watched this game more than I played it because my brother was obsessed with Shenmue. We're not the biggest fighting game fans, but Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast, which I think is a launch title, is regarded as one of the better fighting games ever made.
And it's so much fun. It's just a port of the arcade. I'm not the biggest fighting game fan, but it is freaking sweet. And then you got Crazy Taxi 1 and 2, which I love the Crazy Taxi games.
We have two right here. Reason I gravitate towards this game is I think it has a better soundtrack. And this game introduced the Crazy Hop.
Yes.
Which, to traditionalists, it might not matter, but that changed the game for me. I loved being able to, pop as you were going downhill. So before you hit the crest, you crazy hop and could fly over, a whole shitload of traffic. You had to learn the timing and the feel of it, but man, it was a game changer. I never wanted to play the game again without the crazy hop.
Every time I do a crazy hop, it makes me think of that scene in a Ferris Bueller's Day Off where they take the car and they go flying with it.
It's awesome, and you can get Crazy Taxi 1 and 2 for fairly cheap. Now, some games that are more expensive, but game changers, and I'm so surprised Capcom has just not done anything with the series, is Power Stone.
Ooh, yes, good pull.
Power Stone 1 and 2 had a very Smash Brothers type of feel. These games are really badass. There is a compilation or collection on the PSP.
Ooh, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
But it's handheld. I know a lot of people that love Power Stone. It's their favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet, but I think I do like Smash Bros. better.
Another game I haven't beat myself. I've played it though because my brother owned it. I gave my brother my Dreamcast when I got my PS2, and he kind of kept going, and so I would get into some stuff that he was into. Is Skies of Arcadia.
Ooh, great pick.
It's a game we don't own. It's a bucket list game for us, but a lot of people regard that as one of the better RPGs from the era. And then some games that we do know a lot about would be the Virtua Tennis and
Yes,
Tennis 2K2, which is Virtua Tennis 2 in other territories. Flawless tennis game.
Yes,
we already talked about them a little.
One of the best tennis games ever. It looks amazing. It plays perfectly. And you can do doubles, co-op, and get the freaking championship belt. We've talked about this game
So
ad
much
nauseum
fun.
if you've been watching the channel for a long time. I think this was in our 2-year anniversary episode of the
Yeah,
tennis game.
and we own both, the first one and the second one.
2K2, man. I love it so much.
It is great. Zombie Revenge. If you are a couch co-op, beat 'em up, run and gun fan, you need to play this game. And if you love the House of the Dead series, because this is done in that style, shitty campy,
Dude, it's
voice acting.
so bad, but that's why I love it.
Oh,
it's
amazing
fun.
game.
So much fun. What a great game. And then Cannon Spike, which is a fantastic twin stick shooter type thing. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
you don't have twin sticks,
yeah.
so it's kind of weird to explain, but it's a really good game. Another game that's kind of in the same vein that just feels very PS2 era Contra, like the Contra, Neo Contra is kind of what they kind of remind me of. Cannon Spike and then Expendable.
Well, both fantastic games.
Which we fortunately have both those games, love those games, and they are a little bit more on the expensive side.
Super pricey.
Now we talked about light guns. 2 light gun games that are just epic that I think are must play for light gun fans would be Confidential Mission
Great game.
and House of the Dead 2,
Oh.
which is a true arcade port.
Which is, dude, House of the Dead 2, we play with our Mad Cats. It's so much fun,
Yep.
dude. I love House of the Dead so much. And then we love our shmups. There's a lot of great shmups on the Dreamcast.
We're going to miss some. But
yeah.
these are just some of our favorites.
These are just some of our favorites. You got Giga Wing 1 and 2, which is a fantastic shmup, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's just perfect arcade ports of those games. Zero Gunner 2, I don't know how to say it, Karos? Karous, which is a fantastic game. Chaos Field, which I believe, I could be wrong, but I think both of those are on that compilation
Yes,
pack.
for the Wii. I was just going to say that.
Is it? Yeah, it's on the Wii,
The
right?
Ultimate Shooting Collection.
Okay.
Yeah. Karos and Chaos Field, I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Yep.
Are on that. And there's a third one.
I was going to say GameCube, but Chaos Field's on the GameCube, but that package
It's on the Wii.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
And then you got Ikaruga or Ikaruga, however you say
Yeah.
it, which is another beautiful
And a
game.
lot of people think of that game as a GameCube game, but it actually came out on the Dreamcast, and it's kind of a nice padded landing here for anybody that wants to play that game, because I believe it is on the Switch now.
Oh, is it really?
Which
Nice.
it's a very expensive game on the Dreamcast and on the GameCube.
So if you can get it for the Switch.
Yeah, and then a game, actually, Baltimore Retro Gamer sent us a burn of Border Down. And it's
which
a
is
badass game. He sent us a bunch of, like, Japanese shooters. That's how we got our copy of Zero Gunner. It was a burn, but he made, like, covers for him, and, like,
It's freaking
like, dude, I want to
awesome.
hook you guys up with this. So, man, I don't know if you'll see his video, but we play the shit out of those games,
Thank
man.
you.
So thank you so much. Just some good shooters. There's tons more. There'll be some expert shooter fan watching, so you guys didn't bring this one up. Those are just ones we actually have in our collection
Yeah, and
have
play,
played.
yeah.
So love those games. Okay. Should you purchase or collect for the Dreamcast in 2021? That's the whole point of the series that we're doing. We're trying to get folks into affordable, attainable collecting in 2021, because the market has gotten out of control in a lot of areas. I gotta kind of put this in the same bucket.
It's the GameCube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Dude, I love the Dreamcast so freaking much, and it's a new love for me. I've like fallen in love the past 2 years with it, but I'm gonna say no. It's to be a casual gamer, to be able to keep your life together and buy video games, it's just not worth it. The prices are insane, and it's hard saying that because I love it.
Yeah, it is tough, but like, you look at, if you're wanting to play games on a budget, you know, you can get Crazy Taxi 3, which I think 2 is better than 3. You can get that super cheap on the OG Xbox.
Yes.
A lot of these shooters, we talked about that shooter collection you can get on the Wii.
Yep.
And then there's like the Sikyo shooter collection, which has a lot of great
on the
Dreamcast
Switch.
shooters on the Switch.
I think there's like multiple volumes of that too.
Yeah, it's just really, really tough, as much as I hate to say it. Like, even this game, Jet Grind Radio, which was a game a lot of people had, this game is like, I think, north of $50 now,
Nice.
and I got this minty copy at a game store at some point for like $9. I mean, got this Dreamcast for $24.99. It's gotten to a point, and then the other part is it's disc-based, and kind of like the PS1, these jewel cases, they just get beat to shit.
Yeah.
And so it's even extra expensive to get one that's minty and not all crushed up and dicked up. I mean, if you find a console on the cheap and you're okay playing Burns, maybe take the dive. We don't love playing Burns. We like playing original stuff. We do have a few that was gifted to us, but I wouldn't jump into a console because I could play burned games. Now, you can read your own mail. If you want to get the console and a controller and a memory card and you're okay playing some Burns, it might be worth grabbing.
But I do think you can get your Dreamcast fix in other ways for a lot cheaper. There's a lot of Dreamcast games on the Xbox. There's stuff on the Wii. Like, there's so many different ways to get it cheaper than actually playing it on the Dreamcast. And I know a lot of people want to play on original hardware, or it's not quite the same games, blah, blah, blah. But it's just, if you're going for that cheap route, you can find stuff on other things.
And just so you guys know, there are ways. We don't do a lot of hacking and modding and all of that stuff.
Yes.
So there are people who inevitably are going to see this video and say, well, you could do X, Y, or Z and have the whole library and plug it in. Okay,
Yeah,
you
you
are
can do that.
correct. But video game collectors collect physical media and collect video games. That is what we're speaking to. There are ways around it. There are ways on the GameCube, which we already did a video on, to have the GC loader and not have to buy all the games. But we're talking about collecting for the console,
Yeah.
not just playing the games. And I think the console is affordable enough, but a lot of the games, as you mentioned, have just gotten outrageous.
And it's one of those things that I don't see Dreamcast stuff out in the wild either. And it could be because the sales were less than 10 million sales.
Very low install base.
Very low install base. I just think it's super rare to find. It's pricey, and I don't think the market's ever it's gonna be one of those settles.
I don't think it's going to. I mean, just with that install base, it's always going to be rare, and I think you can take your spend, and if you watch some of the other buying guides that we've done, you can get into the Wii, the PS2, the OG Xbox, so many consoles if you're into that Gen 6 era of things, and I know the Wii is not Gen 6, but there's so many other consoles you can collect for on a budget right now.
Yeah.
This guy just doesn't happen to be one of them, unfortunately.
It sucks. I love him. But, you know what else I love? Beer. What do you think of this beer by Evil Twin? This is 90 Days Dry Aged Stout. It's a milk stout brewed with dry aged malt.
Yeah, so Evil Twin is a brewery that I would say is up in that upper echelon of favorite breweries for us. They typically always deliver. This beer, it's pretty darn good. Doesn't really move the needle for me, though. I mean, if you have to put it on like a 10-point scale, it's probably a 7.5 or an 8. I'm enjoying it.
It's good, but it's very unique. There's like a bitterness to it. The flavor just kind of dries. I mean, it is dry aged, so the flavor dries in your mouth really quick. It's enjoyable, but for being a milk stout, I was hoping it'd be more creamy. But it could be that malt that's in there. I don't know. This is good, but not what I was expecting.
Well, and it's tough because a lot of the Evil Twin brews that we have had on the channel, they're like, holy shit, this is like one of the best beers I've ever had type of thing. And this just doesn't fall into that category. It's a decent stout.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Not a bad beer. Just not a great beer. All right, that is a wrap on Gen 6. We are going to move on after this into some other generations. We have a PS3 buying guide and Xbox 360 buying guide. So if you're into Gen 7 stuff, we will have you covered on that front as well. These buying guide episodes seem to be doing pretty well, so you guys seem to like them and find them beneficial. In the comment section below, let us know if you agree or disagree with the fact that the Dreamcast, it's just not the time to collect for it.
It's not.
In 2021. Unfortunately, the ship has sailed, the window is closed, and it's time to move on to other consoles. It just is what it
It
is.
sucks, man, because I love it.
We love it. I'm glad we have a sizable collection, but it's going to stay right about where it is.
Yeah, it's not going to grow.
But anyway, we always appreciate you guys tuning in and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you next time, right here on Gaming Off the Grid. I was like, hit that shit, Leonardo.
Hit it.
Hit that. Plow that ass.
But then you got fucking straining on a wooden door, and then woke up and he was in a dream. Inception.
We'll regard that as one of the better RPG.
Did we get it?
I think we got it.
Oh.
I think it's good enough for a town this size.
Yeah.
And the women we run with.
I'm gonna just be honest, and we have a couple burn games because some games. Should we give it a try?
Yeah. That's what she is.
Aged in dry aged malt.
Kind of smells like cat piss.
Kind of tastes like it too.
No, I'm kidding. It doesn't. We're not huge fighting games fans. Oddly enough, we are wrapping up the